story that most people know if they remember it is that Denise Rich, his ex-wife, made these payments and then the pardon took place. Right. And people kind of assumed, okay, he got paid before the fact. Bill Clinton did. The fact of the matter is those payments have continued. So literally tens of millions of dollars from Mark Rich's business partners, from his lawyers, from his media advisors, from his friends, continue to flow into the Clintons, either to the Clinton Foundation or in terms of speeches sponsored for Bill Clinton. Mark Rich filled a void in the world that if you were a international regime, a pariah, like the regime in South Africa or like Ayatollah Khomeini, who was at the time holding American hostages, Mark Rich was the guy that could buy or sell oil for you. And he did it with all the rogue states, North Korea, Iran, apartheid South Africa. So he was a bad guy that did deals with very, very bad, nefarious people, and he became very, very rich doing it.
Okay, and I saw that piece this morning when I was in the gym. I thought it was interesting, and it's not just the Clintons. It's not Clinton. Let's bash Clinton hour. I'm sure this happens with Bush and every other politician that's out there, and it's not limited to just the presidential politics, where people get sweet rewards and they try to hide it. Like in Rich, she gave him the money up front, when I think they said $450,000, and then afterwards, how much money is being contributed, not directly, indirectly, from his partners and different resources that the individual has. The whole system's just gotten cricket, where the elitists are controlling everything from our political system to judicial system to everything, and it's all determined by money. All right, so this is Francesco Abbruzzino. This is the Uncensored Report. One-man operation. I do everything from the production to research for this, to managing the social media for the Scoop, National News, and the Uncensored Report, and the website. All truly one-man operation. And this show is unedited, unscripted. Basically pull up some documents, hit on the points that I want to hit. I'm looking through the documents as I go along. Try to keep it about an hour. What do I generally do if you're new is we start off with the local or the general news. So let's go ahead and do that. Get rid of this guy. There we go. We'll go to my page. Let's see. It was interesting because this is the lady, Aunt Viv. Here, let's take a quick listen to her.
To jeopardize their, for you to ask other actors and other black actresses and black actors to jeopardize their career, and they're standing in a town that you know damn well you don't do that. And here's the other thing, they don't care. They don't care. And I find it ironic that somebody who has made their living and made millions and millions of dollars from the very people that you're talking about boycotting, just because you didn't get a nomination, just because you didn't win. That is not the way life works, baby.
All right, Aunt Viv telling them how it is, and she was talking to Will Smith and his wife Jada. It should be known that she didn't get along good with Will during the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and that's why she was fired. But Aunt Viv letting them have it, telling them that's, basically get out of here with that request for affirmative action and basing on an award on your skin color. Another tragic story here. Not sure how many views it'll get. Let me see. I just put that one up. That's already gotten, only 61 reached. I just put this one out there, and it's a tragic story, and you see this all too often where women are sold as sex slaves. This is an individual that went to visit Greece with her mother when she was 14, and for 6 years she was stuck in servitude as a sex slave. So interesting story. It's happening throughout the world, and it's a travesty. Just an idiot revving up his engine and his Lambo catches fire. I think this is like the second one I've seen come out. Morning Live, don't be this guy in the gym. Just some goofball out there doesn't know how to lift. All right, let's see. Drones, I thought it was interesting. Amazon is revealing more details about their specific drone delivery program, stating that they'll be able to deliver a product within 30 minutes of their area. It's a 55-pound drone, and they can carry up to 5 pounds in packages. Flint continues to be a crisis. The Michigan governor refuses to step down. This guy did what many are doing, what many politicians here locally are doing. Here locally, they're talking about now moving the city fire department to the county control to save X amount of dollars or what they hope or perceive as money. But are they jeopardizing quality to save money and make themselves look good? Because they're not going to save us money. They're saving the city money, but then the county's going to bill us more. To us, it's more of a quality issue. Similar things here. Politicians came in and said, we need to save money. There's a budget crunch. Let's save money. They went to the Flint River, started pulling from there. Within immediately, I don't know what the timeline was, people started coming down with Legionnaires. I think there's 87 people with that. Lead poisoning. And for 2 years, this stuff went on, and none of the politicians did anything until the media stepped in and started drawing more attention to the issue. Davos, the elites. We're going to cover elites a lot today, but they're meeting over there. This is a story I've seen out there, and it's starting to get more traction. And it all came from email where they talk about a pan-African currency based upon the gold and silver reserves that Gaddafi had. And that's why that whole thing started, where the United States went after Gaddafi. And this is all coming from State Department emails over that whole email gate with Hillary Rodham Clinton. Georgia linebacker died after tonsil surgery. Tragic story there. Major storms up north. And this is the first blast. You're going to get a second blast this weekend, and we're here. It's pretty cold here in South Florida. It's in the 50s, and that we woke up to. It's supposed to be in the 60s, I think, this week, but I'm glad I'm not up north anymore. I used to live up in Cleveland, lived in Detroit, lived in Maryland, and I don't miss the snow. Knife wielding guy. What's this? What did we just pass up here? Woman asks a fire crew to help her take off a chastity belt. Who in God's name does a chastity belt still? All right, let's get to serious news. This is one where the protesters were protesting Martin Luther King Day. They essentially, I heard on the news today that they wanted MLK Day weekend brought back, and it seems like they aren't happy that white America has apparently hijacked the holiday. That's the way it came across to me in the news. So let's go ahead and restart this and do a listen to it. I don't think it's got any volume on it. Nope, no volume. Okay, that's just the traffic jam. They closed it down. I think there was 25 people arrested after the incident yesterday. Sorry, I thought there was some kind of volume to it. And that's the protest right there. Black Health Matters, as you can see from the sign when they shut down the highway. Let's see. Next, we got TB. Some people tested positive for tuberculosis. 47 people in West Central Alabama. So just being cognizant of that. Twitter was down this morning nationwide. I don't know what happened. I think it might have even been worldwide. It is back up now. Huffington Post. This is the... We'll take a listen. It's basically Britain talking about banning Trump because they got 600,000 signatures saying they weren't happy that he wants to stop all Muslims from coming into the country.
Trump. On that point about 1.6 billion Muslims, thank God there are 1.6 billion Trumps.
Yes,
his policy to close borders is bonkers.
Donald Trump is free to be a fool, but he's not free to be a dangerous fool in Britain.
He is a wazzock. His words are not comical. His words are poisonous.
Donald Trump is a buffoon. No, a buffoon.
Buffoonery.
Daft and offensive.
Nasty.
Now, Donald Trump may be a buffoon, folks, but come on. Freedom of speech mean anything to these people in Britain? They want to ban him because he has been basically going out there and some deem it as hatred, spewing hatred. Possibly that's it. I think they misconstrued. Major media took some lines out and misconstrued what he said. Basically, he said, stop them from coming until there's a vetting process. He was specifically talking about the Muslims because he was talking about the Syrian issue with the refugees coming here, the president not telling anyone where they're going, 95% of them being Sunni Muslims, which is the extremist sect that ISIS and Al-Qaeda belong to. But you don't hear any of that, and yet they want to cut his freedom of speech. Is this a Western society? So freedom of speech is okay unless you deem it to be offensive? When did we start that? Just a story about a real-life boss. More stuff about elitists, which we're going to cover in a little bit. some Democrats are pushing to sue gun makers, have the ability to sue a gun maker if a crime is committed. I think it's absurd, but it's another attempt at gun control. Travel warning for the Zika outbreak. It's getting crazy out there. I did watch something on it today, and basically there's one in Hawaii and somebody that just came back from Latin America in Texas, and then you have a few in Puerto Rico. So it is something that's coming to America. Why is it a concern? If you don't go to Latin America, should you be worried? Yes, you should. And that's because it's transmitted via mosquitoes. So if a mosquito comes along and bites someone that has Zika, the Zika virus, they come along and bite you, then it's transferable, my understanding from what the doctor was saying. And they said it's not bad. Now there's no vaccine. There's no preventative medicine. There's nothing to resolve it. If you do get sick, you're sort of screwed. If you're an average American, all it really does is get you a little tired, a little sore in the bones. Where the major impact comes is if you're pregnant, and the damage it can cause to your fetus, and so that's the concern that many people are having. Zika. 3 died in a murder-suicide in sunny Ganesco. And it just talks, you hear this all too often, unfortunately, when you get a guy who's distraught over his girlfriend, they've broken up, and he goes out and kills her. And I see this all too often happening to individuals. This 8-year-old boy wanted his wish to become true and become famous, and I like to believe that we helped contribute to that because I shared this story early on. I know it had a lot of shares and a lot of activity. I think over 50,000 reached on it. So good to give that kid a wish in his last days there, unfortunately. More issues with China with the GDP. The economic growth is worse than 25 years, and who knows if this is the fudge number or the real number. Let's see right now where the markets are going. The futures are sitting at the positive right now. Just over 200 points. I think we gave up 391 the other day. We got a long ways to go, and you're going to see days where it's going to be up, days where it's going to be down, but they're rebounding off this China data because essentially, even though they say their GDP has slowed and we don't know if they're real numbers or not, they're using it as an excuse to buy into it and say that China will have a soft landing versus a hard landing, but we'll see what transpires from that. Just some fluff, a couple fluff pieces. This is a good thing. You're always hearing about Tokyo and Japan and the exploitation of underage girls for sex. And finally, the Tokyo police are starting to crack down on businesses that are exploiting these young ladies. So this is a good thing, and I'm glad to see that piece come out. Interesting piece. Unfortunately, only 256 people thought it was interesting. Hoax person, she goes out and busts people that are doing the fake GoFundMes. This is tragic because we had an incident here where the tornado, the duets, both individuals passed away. One person was put in the hospital, and I guess the daughter of the two parents that passed away is a fiance to a local Venice, Florida fire department guy. So they started a GoFundMe to try to help them out, try with expenses and stuff. And a lot of people came out questioning it, which deterred individuals from possibly giving. I knew it was legit because I knew it came from a verified source from the fire department. And it's tragic, though, that you got so many hoaxers out there that are ruining it for these individuals, the ones that really need it. A travesty. Steve Harvey talking about death threats and stuff after he made his mistake. Utah police was actually paying for cancer bills. That's the guy that was killed yesterday. Efforts to curb overuse of antibiotics amid the flu season because these antibiotics aren't as strong. They're not doing a great job at fighting off the flu because they're so readily used. Instead of taking your time, government waste with these guys spend $400,000 telling Latino men to exercise more. Waters, he's always funny. Can you feel the burn? I'm still amazed with this by Scholastic pulling a book because of our politically correct culture out there, calling it offensive because he had a slave cook, and so the social justice warriors are out there winning. This is an orange adult cat, had electric tape tightly around him. That's probably getting a lot of hits. Not really, only 3,100. I'm surprised by that. Colorado man dies driving his pregnant wife, to the hospital in a fatal accident. This talks about the storm. This is an interesting story regarding a New Jersey high school hockey captain, and he's playing through his cancer. He's not letting that keep him down. I just thought this was funny, whereas Clinton's no individual's too big for jail, that she would tweet that out, and it backfired on her. Some information on Bernie. A lot of people are asking about him and what this socialist is all about. Pentagon want to make it retroactive to demote General Petraeus. This is all politics. Not sure why they decided this is needed now. Let's see, what another star, that one's engaging, drops out, and Chris Rock saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be in the Oscars because they don't consider color." This is a conversation taking place about the wealthy and the bottom 50%, which I'm going to cover. This was just interesting how they put a guy, some business owners trying to put a machine out where people can masturbate in Manhattan. It's a little disgusting, a little funny. Got a lot of hits. Varsity Girl canceled because of fight. That's at protesters blocking the highway. And what else do we got? This was interesting. Let's take a quick listen to this because this utterly amazed me, folks. These are individuals that have no idea who Martin Luther King is. Amazing. Let's just listen for a second here to Mark Dice's Man on the Street.
This morning, so
it's one of my favorite speeches. The Kennedy speech, his speech, and Lincoln, fourscore, and.
Are you going to be going to the memorial for Martin Luther King?
This is the first I heard about it. I didn't watch the news. I don't even know where it's going to be.
Yeah, news just came. He just passed away this morning of a coronary, age of 93.
Oh, but that's not so bad.
Made it to 93.
That's
so
good.
Martin Luther King, the first African American to walk on the moon, passed away this morning. Just getting people's reactions to his legacy for the black people.
What can I say? It was a good man, no? And hope there's more people like him.
A good role model for African American astronauts.
For everybody.
Yeah.
That's a
Very
good person.
sad day.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think maybe they'll make a holiday for him?
Maybe, you never know. This world's crazy. They do a lot of crazy stuff.
But maybe a Martin Luther King holiday someday, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
To commemorate the...
All right, the dumbing down of America. I mean, does this guy really not realize that Martin Luther King was a civil rights advocate out there, that he wasn't an astronaut, that he died years ago, that he was assassinated, that there is a holiday, and the holiday was yesterday during the interview? Truly amazing what's happening with our society and the dumbing down of America. And this guy, Mark Dice, actually puts out every person that he interviews, and he doesn't skip certain individuals. I think he interviewed 5 people, and the last one finally said, "No, dude, you're totally wrong. Martin Luther King died. He's an activist, blah, blah, blah." Funny piece, interesting piece, and disappointing piece to see where American society has gone. All right, so wanting higher wages, I think that's enough. We're getting into a lot of yesterday's news and some of the reactions and responses there from the individuals. So let's go ahead and, the Eagles, Glenn Fry passed away. That's a tragic event. Tragic. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me opine on some of the other issues that are pressing out there. I know some stuff like this goofball, this goober here, not knowing that Martin Luther King Day is actually a holiday, is pretty pressing, but there is more stuff out there. And there's been a lot of focus, a lot of attention. As you saw, I think I put a couple posts just today and yesterday, and then I think there were a couple more before, and it's all on this Oxfam report that came out. It's an analysis. And basically it states that the top 1% or more have more wealth than the rest of the planet combined. That's a lot of wealth, folks. And I've been talking a lot in this show about the demise of the middle class, the destruction of the wage system, where we're getting less and less and less the hours. We're not working as many hours. We're only getting 30, or because you can't come on as a full-time employee. Companies are limited to 49. Otherwise, they go to 50. They got to pick up extra expenses with Obamacare. That whole story. But essentially, the 1% or the 62 ultra-wealthy members, these elitists are out there, and they have more money, or just as much, as the poorest 3.5 billion people. Listen to that. 62 ultra-wealthy members of society have more money than 3.5 billion people on this planet. And that's the shocking numbers that this Oxfam came out with. And it essentially shows the disparity, the inequality, income inequality that's continuing to grow. This report basically came out and said that it's growing at a very rapid pace. The total wealth for the poorest of the global population has plunged essentially by 41% since 2010. Since 2010. That's a travesty, folks. And again, it's that demise of the middle class, because that's where you're seeing the largest impact. And they're starting to become the poorest of the poor out there. And so the elite, theirs didn't go down, theirs continued to skyrocket. And now we're in the grasp, the funnels of this wealth at the very top. They're controlling everything. The global elite. The global elite are meeting out there in Dallas, like I showed you that one article, to decide how to control the sheep, us. And unfortunately, in our world, in our society, money's power. And the elites control the power, which gives them the ability to go out to Dallas and meet and decide our future. Think about it. Back before this report, the last numbers came out. 388 members of the elite had all the wealth, about the same amount of wealth as half the poorest out there, and that's how much it's grown since then. The basically middle class has fallen, and the rich are getting richer. Oxfam is reporting that it's only going to get worse in the future years. And the biggest reason Oxfam attributed to this change, this shift, is the financialization of the global economy. And you're seeing this all over the world, from governments, businesses, individuals. They've trained us to go out and binge on debt, to go out and spend money that we don't have. And this debt is systematically impoverishing all of us. Whenever you go out, you borrow money, you get money, you're paying back money. You're paying back money to those wealthy people, the people that are at the top of this pyramid scheme. And essentially, they attributed these numbers to the explosion of debt that we're seeing throughout society. And the more money they get, the richer they get, the more they can impose their will on us, the more they can control us, essentially the sheep. And you may think, oh, well, then I'll just vote them out. I'll go to the ballot box. But those people are controlled too, as we heard from Donald Trump. And it's essentially the person with the most money always wins. And they're bought and sold by the elitists, by the Donald Trumps of the world. He made that very clear in one of his debates. And those same elitists have created this massive global financial bubble that we're experiencing right now that's getting ready to pop. It's getting ready to burst. And with that, we'll have some serious consequences, which we're already starting to see trillions wiped off the books. And I've said it before. You may not be in the stock market, but your business owners are in the stock market. The people that are out there essentially producing the jobs are in those markets. This whole oil crash, we got 500,000 extra barrels Iran's going to start putting in the market. They're hoping to get it up to 1 million. That's just dragging the market down into this bear territory. And the damage isn't going to stop there. It's a major crisis. They said it has a lot of earmarks of 2008. They got this guy, Albert Edwards. He went out and he did some number crunching. And basically he said that if there's a 75% decline in the S&P, now we will be plunged into a global depression. And with that, the financial institutions will implode. They will not want to loan out any money. There will be a major credit crunch. Now think about that. They won't lend out any money. There will be a major credit crunch. And yet, I just said seconds ago, that's why we are the poorest of the poor, is because we are a debt society. What are we going to do when we can't get that money to pay the debt and we don't have the money in our bank account? I think another report just came out, 61% of the people out, the population in the United States don't have $500 for emergency bills. So you got to start wondering, what will happen to us folks, the common folks, the ordinary folks? You're going to see millions of jobs lost. Millions of families will not be able to pay bills because they cannot get that credit extension. I remember during the last credit crisis, I had flawless credit back then, probably not now, and they were cutting my credit card. I remember I had like $20,000 I could put on a credit card. They cut it down to like $5,000. Things were getting bad. Now, I never needed that much, but it's the point. They're creating this chaos, which they love. And then they can offer up solutions, which is generally make you more dependent upon them. And as bad as things are getting right now, the truth is that they are going to get a lot worse, folks. A lot of people predict they will get a lot worse. And the elitists will continue to control us, control society, and get essentially what they want. And this has all been derived from, I said, the oil crisis. We all know about the oil and what happened there. We all know what Janet Yellen did back in around Christmas. We had an excellent Christmas present. She went ahead and decided to raise interest rates. And next thing you know, a month later, the economy's tanking. The stock market's tanking. The economy's been tanking for a while. We've seen what's happening with the coal industry, where they're carefully out there. They're barely holding on. And a lot of people are wondering why Yellen did that action, why she took that action. And the Fed's decision wasn't predicated upon inflation, which they generally should be looking at. It was them looking into some crystal ball, figuring out, well, this is the direction the market's going to go in. This is what we need to do. And there's been different obstacles in the way out there, but the Fed chose to ignore them. They saw the oil glut coming. They saw the falling prices in there. They saw the consumer spending. They saw that the corporate profitability out there was due to some hidden stuff, like buying back all their stock. We had a strong dollar, and it's making imported products cheaper. But, and then here comes the carnage. 2 weeks ago on Wall Street, NASDAQ, trillions of dollars lost. And they got people like this Albert Edwards guy said that we're entering a cyclical bull market within a secular bear market. Next recession will spell real trouble for investors. People are starting to get concerned. The same day Obama came out and said, the economy's great, everything's great, don't worry, listen to the naysayers. You had the, what was it, Swedish or the Scottish Royal Bank come out and say, sell everything, get rid of everything. It's horrible out there. And people are starting to wonder, okay, well, what does the government need to do? And one of the ways to control this, one of the directions that they need to go in is abolish cash. And that's because they got this strategy of pushing interest rates into this negative territory, and it'll basically outlawing cash and sending electronic credits directly to the private banks. The banks love it because they can control it. The government loves it. All around, many people enjoy that whole concept, except we, the people. For the feds and the banks that serve, it's just a grand idea out there because they want central control of the economy. So what are we to do? What's middle America to do? The demise of the middle class. And see, this is the stuff that keeps me up at night, wondering, what will tomorrow be like? It's disturbing. All right, so I did want to talk a little bit about ISIS and the growing threat. I think I posted some stuff, and I got to see if it's on my documents to pull up here. No, I didn't save it. Basically, how they're gaining more territory in Libya, and every day you're hearing about it more and more. And I think last week I talked about how they were sending their fighters from Syria and saying, "Look, don't come this way because it's getting harder." Turkey's establishing some form of a border control, and they're telling people to go to Libya. Also, the fact that they're getting bombed to hell and back in Iraq and Syria. And so the question comes in, and how do we stop these guys? How do we stop this JV team? So you're off there, this article said, look, put yourself in this situation. You're out there, you're rushed off to a strategy meeting, and you need to come up with a plan for ISIS. What would you do? And what hasn't worked? Review what's not going to work. What hasn't worked? And the fight against ISIS has essentially flopped. So essentially, this whole war against terrorism has. And when you look at the candidates that are out there that are going to be tasked with taking on ISIS, you should be concerned. And so you got to look at the different options that are out there. We got the bombing and the drones, and this is, the surgical strikes out there. It kills a lot of the bad guys out there. It unfortunately kills some of the innocent people out there. And, some of them happen to be Americans. And so with the air power, though, you're going to need boots on the ground. We don't want to put our boots on the ground. So, we'll put some special forces like we have in Syria. Then we have to do this carrot and stick thing where we try to collect together a big enough coalition to talk them into putting their boots on the ground to go in there. And we've had this operation Inherent Resolve. It's been in place since 2014 against the Islamic State. We've flown over 9,000 sorties, over 5,900 in Iraq, over 3,000 in Syria. And the United States claims that we've killed between 10 to 25,000, which is a huge spread, 10 to 25,000. I don't know if that's accurate, though, because if you look at it, they've been saying that that the Islamic State has 20 to 30,000 fighters under its arms. If they have 20 to 30,000 fighters under their arms, and we've killed 10 to 25,000 of those fighters, how is it they still appear to have the same amount of land? They seem to have 30,000 fighters. Are they recruiting that well? There's a disconnect there between the numbers that the United States government is giving and how large they think the organization actually is. And I'm not sure which one is inaccurate. And, some of our approaches in the past hasn't been that great. We took Ramadi. We lost a lot of individuals taking Ramadi in 2003. We handed it over to Iraqis. Iraqis essentially gave it up and threw their arms down earlier last year. And then we went back in and we took it over again at the end of the year. And we've had similar successes throughout, trying to rid these evil tyrants from Iraq and Syria cities. But what's happening is we're getting involved in these countries. We're going in, we're trying to remove people like Saddam Hussein, like Gaddafi. And we're having this thing where we've got years and years and years of blowback. And the creation of terrorist masterminds. Anwar al-Awlaki came out of Iraq. Jihad John. You see them pop up in these terror outfits. And basically these failed states become fertile ground for these terrorists, these Muslim extremists. And the question is, do they become dangerous to us? Because you got the argument out there where Obama basically came out and he said, no, they're no danger to us. We're working against them. We're engaged in this war. But is it effective? Is it helping Americans? It's hard. It's hard to persuade us Americans who are constantly reminded of this terror and the threat that it brings. But is it a real threat? We've only had about 38 Americans killed by Islamic State terrorists, lone wolves, or some whack jobs that are out there ever since 9/11. That's not a significant number. And if you double it, if you triple it, and it still adds up to some tragic but undeniable drop in the bucket compared to the amount of people that have been killed out there in comparison. And the Americans, we've gone out there and we've killed, since 9/11 by guns, more than 400,000 people, they're saying. Drunk drivers killed more than 10,000 people. So the overall impact of individuals dying by terrorists isn't that significant in the grand scheme of things. And they'll say, oh, it's all because TSA at the airports and the security measures at the airports, stuff like that. But they've gone out and they tested this, and they say that 95% of the contraband that's flown through the airports get through the screening without being detected. This includes weapons, this includes guns, so I don't think it's this phenomenal airport security. And, could it be that there just aren't as many bad guys out there aiming to take the country down? Well, that's possible. But what we need is a candidate that can go out there and face this real world challenge that we have. We've already spent $1.6 trillion on this strategy, this war on terror. Left thousands of American troops and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Muslims dead. And we're not achieving our end objectives. So we have to do something out there. But what do? As a society, do we take a deep look? Do we take a deep look at ourselves, at our leaders, at our processes? Even at the media, myself, are fanning what they'll say, we're fanning these flames. We have the discrimination or perceived discrimination of Muslim population out there, which only makes it that much more difficult for this whole objective. And as a president, you need to opt out of all this and dissuade us from buying into it and get this whole new mindset out there. With Islamic State, go after the funds. We bombed the one bank. They lost a ton of funds, and the report is that they're cutting a lot of their pay off for the Islamist fighters. Go after this fund. Fly these sorties. Attack these sources. Why haven't we been doing that all along? And we need some kind of endpoint. Shut off the flow of oil that they're using for money. Why aren't we seeing any of this? We don't. The other answer is a lot of people say, just get out of there, get out of the land, get out of the planes, get out of the drone business, come here and protect the homeland, and that's it. Step away from the table, cut your losses. That we're throwing this money after this global prestige. We're destroying many lives. When you go out and you kill millions of Muslims, I tell you what, that's not going to make us love us anymore. In the end, there's nothing the United States can do about the process that's underway with the Middle East except sit there and try to push back against the waves of tyranny that come our way. And this is the way history has been. And we have to reflect on that. We can't defend everything out there. Because sometimes defending everything, you might lose stuff in the process. Locking down airports, taking away individual freedoms. And that whole American exceptionalism is disappearing. So you need a candidate that's going to be strong. A candidate that can get out there and find a solution. Who is that candidate? I don't know. Am I sold on it being Trump? No. Definitely not Hillary. Definitely not Bernie. Look, Hillary Clinton should not be in the position she's in. She should not be a viable candidate. I don't know why the Democratic Party would put her up there. It's apparent. If you look at everything, it's apparent this lady's a crooked, lying little you-know-what. Bernie belongs in there. I don't agree with his ideology, but he's someone that comes to the table. He doesn't have any baggage. He hasn't broken any laws. He doesn't have this negative perception about him. Hillary is essentially given to the rise of people like Donald Trump, if you think about it. But I'm still amazed that we can only come up with these couple, 10, 15 people out of a country of 300 million individuals. This is the best we can bring to the table? The best you can bring to the table on the Democratic side is O'Malley, Clinton, and Sanders? they'll essentially follow in Obama's footsteps. You got this Obama guy, and he's out there. He does his State of the Union, where he failed to mention the 10 sailors that were detained in Iran. They're made to apologize. He came on, he said he wanted to assure us that we're strong and relentless when it comes to the fight of terrorism. Fighting that JV team. And instead of calling them what they are, these extremist jihadis, Muslim extremists, he calls them the killers and the fanatics. And these same killers and fanatics have put together about 13 plots and attacks on the U.S. And this is the most since we've seen since 9/11. And those masses of fighters on the back of pickup trucks that he said we should just ignore. Well, today they are responsible for the massive Syrian migration that is backlogging, that is troublesome, that is causing a lot of problems throughout Europe and here in the United States. Almost every day there's new reports of relentless sexual attacks or some form of an attack from coming out of Europe. And, back to ISIS, just, the other day, I think it was yesterday, they talked about taking 400 hostages, beheading a bunch of individuals. Yeah, and ISIS a suicide bomber in Istanbul last week, killed 10 Germans. How about Indonesia? You had that Paris-like attack there. Left 2 people dead, 2 innocent people. And this is so that 5 attackers could go up to heaven and get 72 virgins. And they're going to continue going after these soft targets like San Bernardino and the Boston terror incident. And these are groups that are not directly connected to ISIS or Al-Qaeda, but they act out under that radical Muslim belief. And I mentioned, everybody knows, we had the San Bernardino incident. 14 office workers killed because his husband and wife extremist team. Paris, 130 people killed. Beirut, 43 people killed. You had the downing of the Russian jetliner over Egypt, 224 people killed. Last June, attack in Tunisia, 38 British tourists killed. But this is distant memory to Obama for some reason. He sits there, he'll boast about the U.S. being the most powerful nation in the world. But we sure seem to be having troubles dealing with these ISIS fighters, these 30,000 so-called JV fighters. And we've gone to extraordinary lengths to ward off the terrorist threat ever since 9/11. Giving up many of our privacy, many of our liberties. Yet the only good results we've gotten have been squandered. And we knew at the offset that this was going to be a long war. But we didn't expect it to go the way it's going. And domestically, can we deal with this influx of Syrian refugees? Are we going to be like Germany? Obama seems hell-bent on doing it. He will not tell the governors if they're putting them in their states. Will not tell the local city folk if they're in there. And he wants to do this all in the name of multiculturalism, all in the name of not being viewed as racist, and in the name of not being Islamic phobic. And it should be a no-brainer with this common thread that's out there, connecting many of those who have pulled these terrorist attacks around the world. And the pictures of this ragtag militias, this JV team, putting death out there and mayhem in Paris, Boston, Jakarta, San Bernardino. We need to step up our game. And starting with defense, we need a whole new strategy. Because this strategy of appeasing, I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working at all. What say you? Another issue I wanted to get into, and I've talked about it briefly throughout the couple years that I've been doing this, is the government agencies and their purchase of ammunition. And a lot of times It's not just ammunition, it goes beyond that. And I used to sit there, we would still say we're purchasing 80,000 rounds of ammunition, and I viewed it as a form of gun control. You know, buy up all the ammo. They would close down the iron factories, the producers of the ammo. There's ways to enact gun control without going through and actually instating gun control. And one of them is creating a shortage of ammunition. And so you have Obama out there, and he's got these federal agencies which are stockpiling a huge amount of military hardware. And it goes beyond ammunition. It goes with body armor, riot gear, and etc. And the people are concerned because you got these increasingly bloated and powerful federal governments, these agencies out there with all these weapons. And do they need it? The EPA, do they need it? FDA, IRS. They have been progressively getting militarized ever since 2006. If you take 44 of the agencies out there, federal agencies, they spent $71 million on guns, ammo, armor, riot, and tactical gear. And it's a bit alarming. They had an audit over there. The federal government came up with an audit by a nonprofit organization called Open the Books. They looked at government waste, and bloat takes a backseat to the issue of increasingly arming government agencies. Since 2006, $330 million have been spent on some type of equipment that would traditionally go to law enforcement agencies. But they're going to agencies such as the FDA, the EPA, the Department of Veterans Affairs. Do they need ride helmets? Do they need Kevlar blankets? The FDA, do they need ballistic vests? And as concerned Americans, we need to look at this stuff. We need to be the watchdogs. Did the EPA need to spend $200,000 on body armor? Zoo Police at the Smithsonian Institute spent $28,000 on body armor. What do they need that for? And, you know, we, society, are taught to look at the police as good guys. However, you look at the local police forces, they're increasingly becoming militarized. We're seeing that throughout. More Americans are viewing the increasing power of the federal government as a significant problem. As we should. I mean, they're viewing this as a bigger issue than the economy, unemployment, ISIS, immigration. And we're becoming increasingly disarmed, and government agencies grow more militarized. It creates even more concerns. Disarm the citizens, militarize the agencies. Why? And they're being armed more than ever before. You know, you got Obama who says he's not for militarization of the police, yet the militarization of the police has grown the greatest since he has been in office. So how can you be a vocal opponent to having militarization of the police, yet go out there and have some of the greatest amount of money spent there versus any other president in the United States? And the police, the law enforcement officers, must be subject to citizens they are policing. In the same respect, heavily armed officials in a myriad of non-law enforcement oriented federal agencies should be represented, subject to the citizens. And we need to watch them. We need to see and ask questions. Why are you guys stocking all this equipment? Why are you stocking all this military grade weapons and ammunition? And I get that many are supposed to, because there's some congressional federal agency out there, administrative process or edict that says, hey, you have to have some kind of officers. You know, they got, I think this report said 120 federal agencies are employed right now, full-time officers. They're authorized to carry firearms and make arrests. But the argument comes in is agencies like the IRS and the EPA. Is that the agents, do these agents need to be fully armed and militarized and ready for some type of confrontation? What if I don't pay my IRS bill? They're gonna send in a squad here? And as I've said before, the extent of these agencies are being armed should draw concern from Many of you. You know, the list just goes on and on. They have this article. It talks about the agencies that have law enforcement and can take law enforcement action. National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Why? EPA. Why? Department of Education. Why do they need it? Bureau of Land Management, BMI. We've seen them heavily armed, and they've had their sharpshooters over on the Bundys last year. The Postal Inspection Service, Fish and Wildlife, National Parks. And what it is we're spending all this money. The government waistline is growing out there. We're spending all this money on all these agencies, unprecedented levels. To what end? To the end where it takes away our rights and our liberties as citizens. Our inalienable right to life, liberty, and happiness, as it was written in the Declaration of Independence. And the founders established this to protect our rights as citizenry. But are those rights slowly dissipating, slowly disappearing? And this should draw concern for everybody. That these processes, the increasingly armed government, these agencies, they have no business owning riot gear. Tens of thousands of guns, ammunition, weaponry. And we need to speak against it. We need to stop being so quiet. We need to take a stand against this. And these blatant attempts to subvert our state rights. And when they do this, it's only going to further empower this bloated government. And we're going to start to see stuff like a national police force across the country. We've already seen where Obama's saying, this is the nationalized edict you should follow. It's coming, folks. Especially when I go out to a Trump event and I see the Homeland Security out there taking the lead and being told I got to go to that person to find out information on where to go. The person was dressed as a sheriff. I thought it was a sheriff, and my contact Eric said it wasn't us, Frank. I don't know what you're talking about. And she helped research him. With the Sarasota Police Department, we found Homeland Security, or TSA. I'm sorry, TSA. All right, we're gonna end it there. That's been the show. Hopefully, you're enjoying the show. Of course, stop on my Facebook, the Scoop National News, or if you're local in Sarasota County, the Scoop News Show, or the Venice Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, all that stuff. My website, the Uncensored Report, will get you to any links that I'm sharing on my websites, which I don't share everything that goes on the Facebook pages. And that's it. Visit that. Check out Longevity for your minerals and vitamins, a healthy start to your day. You can have that energy and be strong like bull like me and live a rich and prosperous life. All right, so this has been it. Everybody have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.